Every time you add water to a saltwater aquarium, whether you're filling a new tank or doing a routine water change, the way that saltwater is made directly affects the stability of the system. Welcome back to the Reef Manual. My name is Ariel. So far, we've chosen a tank, selected the equipment, and built the rock and sand layout inside the aquarium. In this chapter, we're moving to the next step, making saltwater. How it's mixed, how it's prepared, and why this process matters not just at setup, but for every water change moving forward. Everything starts with fresh water, but not all fresh water is suitable for a saltwater aquarium. The standard for saltwater aquariums is RO or RODI water. This is water that has been purified through reverse osmosis, often combined with deionization. RODI water removes chlorine, chloramine, heavy metals, nitrates, phosphates, and silicates, and other dissolved contaminants. These contaminants are a common cause of algae issues and long-term instability, especially in reef tanks. Tap water can vary depending on location and season. Even when it looks clean, it can introduce nutrients and metals that slowly build up in the system. Starting with purified water removes those unknowns and gives you a controlled baseline. Once you have clean fresh water, the next step is choosing and mixing salt. Salt mix is not just sodium chloride. It's a formulated blend designed to replicate natural seawater. In addition to salt, it contains calcium, magnesium, alkalinity components, minor elements, and trace elements. These elements support biological processes, and in reef tanks, coral growth and skeletal formation. There are different salt mixes designed for different goals. Some salt mixes are aimed at fish-only systems and focus on basic seawater chemistry. Others are designed for reef tanks and contain higher levels of calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. If there's any chance you plan to keep corals, starting with a reef salt mix is usually the better option. Switching salt brands later can introduce unnecessary chemistry swings. More important than the brand is consistency. Using the same salt mix long-term helps keep parameters predictable. Once you've chosen a salt mix, it needs to be prepared correctly. Salt water should always be mixed outside of the aquarium. Use a clean container that has never been exposed to soap or household chemicals. Inside that container, you'll need both water movement and heat. A small pump or power head keeps the water circulating so the salt dissolves evenly. A heater keeps the water within normal saltwater temperature range. When mixing, always add salt to water, never water to salt. Salt should be added gradually while the water is circulating. Adding too much salt too quickly can cause precipitation, where elements fall out of solution and become unavailable. As the salt dissolves, the water should turn clear. Persistent cloudiness usually means the salt hasn't fully dissolved or the water temperature is too low. Temperature matters for accuracy. Saltwater should be mixed at roughly the same temperature as the aquarium, typically between 24 and 26 degrees Celsius or 75 and 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Mixing saltwater cold can result in inaccurate salinity readings. Once mixed, the next step is confirming salinity. Salinity is measured using a refractometer or hydrometer. For most saltwater aquariums, a specific gravity range of 1.024 or 1.026 closely matches natural seawater. Reef tanks in particular benefit from staying within this range consistently. Stability matters more than hitting a single exact number. Frequent salinity swings stress fish and are especially harmful to corals and invertebrates. After mixing, salt water should circulate for several hours before use. Ideally, it's mixed for 12 to 24 hours. This allows full dissolution, gas exchange, and stabilization before the water enters the tank. In many cases, salt water is mixed ahead of time and stored for later use. Mixed salt water can be stored safely if done correctly. It should be kept in a clean, food-safe container with a lid to prevent contamination and evaporation. A small pump or power head is recommended to keep the water circulating. For short-term storage, heat is not strictly required, but temperature and salinity should always be checked before use. For reef tanks, stored salt water should be brought back up to tank temperature and rechecked for salinity before being added. As long as the water remains clean, circulated, and covered, salt water can be stored for days or even weeks without issue. For many reef keepers, storing pre-mixed salt water makes regular water changes easier and more consistent. Another option is purchasing salt water already mixed. Some aquarium stores sell pre-mixed salt water. This can be convenient for beginners or for those without space to store mixing containers. If using store-bought salt water, salinity and temperature should always be verified before adding it to your own aquarium. Never assume it matches your system. Even when using pre-mixed water, consistency still matters. Using the same source and checking parameters helps avoid unnecessary swings. In reef tanks, salt water is not just water, it's the environment corals live in. Stable salinity and consistent chemistry support coral growth, coloration, and overall health. Problems introduced during mixing or water changes often appear much later and are difficult to trace back. Getting saltwater preparation right makes everything that follows easier. If this chapter helped you understand how saltwater is made and why consistency matters, consider liking this video and subscribing to follow along for future chapters. In the next chapter, we'll cover the cycling process and how biological filtration begins establishing itself in a saltwater aquarium.